Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the CEO of Rhapsody. How are you today?
Good, good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a nice day. Feeling energized. Haven't had my coffee yet, but I'm feeling energized, so that's always good, right?
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on. Let's dive right in. Tell the audience about yourself.
sure. Again, thanks for having me, and good to be here. And by way of background, you know, I consider myself a student of healthcare and technology, and maybe I can share a tiny story that might give you a sense of where I'm coming from. Um, uh, a long time ago, when I had was just getting started in my career, I was working as a software developer at a large EHR company in Madison, Wisconsin, and I had to take a friend of mine to the ER. Now, thankfully, it wasn't anything serious, and he was okay. Um, but when he went into the ER, the triage nurse took his vitals, and then after a while, they took him to the back, and I accompanied him. And then the floor nurse took his vitals again. And I was thrilled because I was the person who had developed that feature that allowed nurses to take multiple sets of vitals for a patient. And that was this big aha moment for me, which wow, the work that I'm doing from a software and technology perspective is having this profound impact on people in very vulnerable times. So from that moment on, it was I had made a decision, and I continued that to this day, which is to be at the intersection of healthcare and technology, to figure out how do we use technology to have the biggest impact possible on patient lives, on provider happiness, and so on. So I worked on the EHR and provider side for many years, had several leadership roles during that time, and I spent thousands of hours shadowing nurses, shadowing physicians in hospitals and in clinics. And during that time, I really got a sense for what makes them tick, what how does technology enable them, how does technology get in their way, and that really helped me kind of chart my path of how do I use my skills to the best of my abilities to really make a difference in there. I've spent time on the payer technology side, using technology to reduce administrative burden, improve automation, and on the intersection of the two, between payers and providers, on some value-based care related topics and technologies. So um, for me, it's again, that's kind of where what my background is, and interoperability and data exchange is a big part of making all of these things possible. So as the CEO of Rhapsody, that's kind of what I'm motivated by, which is how do we use technology to reduce the barriers that data or reduce data barriers to make these things possible.
And and thank you so much for that intro. What I always like to do is anytime there's a new guest on the podcast, we basically give them the in the beginning of the episode the opportunity to kind of pitch for those that maybe haven't heard of Rhapsody. So give us just the general overview of the company, where things are at today, and where you're heading.
Sure. So Rhapsody is a horizontal platform that connects different parts of the healthcare economy. So we connect providers, we connect different digital health care software systems, we connect AI companies, and we bring them all together into a common platform so that they can seamlessly share information with each other. And the we've been doing this for a while, and we from a technology perspective, we support all the methods that you might think of in terms of integration: API, fires, HL7, all of it. The other part of what we do is we're global. Interoperability is a global problem. We serve customers in 22 countries, and as we look at where what the road ahead is, uh, to me, we're going to be an infrastructure company that really helps solve the interoperability problem, which is about bringing providers together so that they can exchange data, as well as all of the digital health solutions that are out there and growing every day, and bringing that together into the healthcare workflow, if you will. So So that's kind of where we're headed, and we take a technology first approach in solving those problems.
What are the biggest challenges you see in achieving seamless data exchange in healthcare? So that is not an easy thing to
No,
do.
not no.
So talk us through the challenges and then really how Rhapsody is addressing these issues.
So I think there's a two parts to that. One is incentives, right? So the first and foremost, the technology has to exist, but that's not enough. The incentives to share data in a seamless way has to be there. So if you think about um, a CIO at a health system today, what are some of their challenges? Their challenge is not interoperability necessarily, but it's really cost, and they're being asked to do some belt tightening. Margins are obviously a big topic of discussion. So how do we make this possible at a kind of from an ROI perspective at a lower cost through higher automation and technology, so that it does not require them the staff that they have today, or it does not require the amount of elbow grease that is needed today. So I'd say from a status quo perspective, the cost of interoperability needs to be lower in order to make some of these projects and some of these initiatives successful in today's economic times. The other side of this is regulatory, um, which is there's a lot of we're dealing with PHI, and this is sensitive stuff, and privacy and security is paramount. So, but as a result of that, there's been a patchwork of laws that have happened all over the place. And as I said, we're a global company, so we get to see this not just in the U.S. but globally. We serve customers in Europe who have very different laws than folks we serve in Asia Pacific or in the Middle East. So it's the one of the things that we have always tried to do is to build our technology in a way that we generalize these patterns so that they can be adapted in for the whatever the local situation is, whether it's at a state or a federal law level here in the US, or within Europe or elsewhere. So if to me the all of these things are solvable at the end of the day. It's really about how much effort does it take, how much cost does it take to solve it, and the higher the level of effort and cost, the more friction you have in the process. So if we can use technology to reduce that, I think we can significantly accelerate the enablement of these technologies for interoperability.
And I'm glad you mentioned in that you're a global company. That's not easy to do, so congratulations. How how does that affect you and what you have to how you tailor your solution? Do you have to do that much, or is it typically a one size fits all approach?
So we fundamentally believe that software should be generalized. One of the things that when I look at the market, I know interoperability is quite frankly an overused word right now. But there's a lot of aspects to interoperability, and we sometimes see some groups solving one small portion of that. So what we have taken upon ourselves is to build generalizable solution that has the right amount of flexibility and configurations so that it can be tuned to whatever the need of the either the local market is, or in many cases whatever the need of that particular interoperability use cases. Our software, number one, it is fully internationalized, so you need to be able to do that to work in a in a global setting with different languages and so on. But then we have some knobs and dials that we need to be turned on for example GDPR compliance, and then similarly for identity matching, for example, is a one area where the way we kind of tune those knobs and dials in the US is different than the way we do it elsewhere. So I think it's about trying to, from a software perspective, thinking about how do you build it in the most generalizable way possible.
And in your opinion, I'm not going to use the word that you said people overuse, but the word. No.
Yeah,
So how does improving that though, that data, I'm actually I have to say it, interoperability,
yeah,
directly benefit patient outcomes?
yeah. And so look, um, you know, for clinicians to make the best decision possible for the patients that they're seeing, they need to have the full picture. Without the full picture, the kind of the the clinical decision making is, even in spite of best intention, is going to be suboptimal. So that was, that was one of the main focus of the digital health world, if you will, is how do we make that possible. So I'm really glad to see the progress that we have made in this country over the last decade, and in different parts of the world, in order to just make the point to point data exchange possible. Um, Now, the next step and the next challenge that we have is, how do we now make this usable? And the data that is being exchanged, is one thing to just, just land put all the data like a stack of digital files on the physician's desk, and now you go sort it out, and figure out what to do. But that's not practical. If you think about an outpatient clinic, a physician spending 10-15 minutes with the patient, they have a lot to process. So for me, I think interoperability now needs to kind of step up its game, if you will. It's not just about moving data back and forth, it's about how do you present data in the most usable format with the highest level of accuracy. And again, accuracy is supremely important as well, because that, incorrect data, incorrect patient matching, etc., could lead to not only suboptimal decisions, but there could be care issues involved there too. So I think that's kind of the next step of interoperability, if you will, to be able to do that. And then at the end of the day, interoperability is not a goal unto itself. We're doing this for a reason. There's a bigger purpose here, which is to serve the purpose of improving patient care, better outcomes because people have the right access to the right data at the right time in the right format.
Well said. And one of the things too, I always ask, by the way, whenever we have a guest come on, is I tell them to be put on their kind of fortune teller hat.
Yeah.
Over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, where do you see healthcare heading, and what is Rhapsody's role in that future?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it's hard to go through a day today without hearing something about AI, right? So I think that there's something happening here. The the there's a lot of AI has been hyped for a long time, but really has never quite reached its potential. But I think now, with the technology advancements that are happening, I think it's getting there. So first and foremost, I see that we're going to have a rise in the enhancement of workflows, enhancements of processes through AI. I don't think AI is going to take over, but it will have a big impact on the clinician experience, and on the patient outcomes, and on the type of the insights that we get into our healthcare system. um, and in order to do that, we have some really smart people trying to solve problems in AI. One part of this is the data infrastructure that is needed to build robust AI algorithms that needs to get better. We need our data scientists focusing on data science, not on cleaning up data and getting putting data together. That's how we will accelerate that process. The second part, I think, that is starting to happen, but I expect, and I do hope it accelerates, is connecting different parts of the healthcare economy. So today, there's a lot of data interoperability and exchange that happens between providers. So typically today, if you go to an ER, your physician's able to pull up your chart from one of the other places. But there's a lot of interesting activity happening on the payer side, on the biopharma side. But those the data exchange in those cases is not quite up to par, and it requires a lot of elbow grease, a lot of manual intervention, and in some cases it's not even happening. So if you follow the news, you'll see there's a while there's on the technology side, there's an AI revolution happening. I think on the biopharma side, there's a therapeutics revolution happening too. CRISPR. I think the first CRISPR, I guess, therapy just got approved in Britain. That's amazing. I mean, if you think about it, Now, imagine how much we could accelerate those kind of revolutionary changes if we had the biopharma's biotech side of things work closely with the care delivery side of things. So instead of having it taking 10 years for a therapy to become mainstream, we can bring those changes to market much sooner. And in order for all of these things to happen, you need that technology infrastructure that takes away all of these challenges. And the best thing that you can do at the technology infrastructure is become just fade in the background. No one even thinks about it. And I think part of it, like that's what we feel very proud of, is when people don't even notice us, that we just kind of we work on the behind the scenes, we just make interoperability happen.
I love that. I it's funny you mention how those sides need to work together too, because like one of the big things we always did with our content is we never, you'll see there's separate sites that separate like biopharma news and digital health news, and we're like all these people do need to be working together, so like let's try to get them all together.
Absolutely. And my wife works in biotech, so through her, I get to keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on there. There's some pretty amazing things happening, and if we can just bring that together with our on the healthcare delivery side, I think we're going to make a massive difference to mankind.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you once again for coming on the podcast, sharing some thoughts with us. We'll have to bring you back on. Maybe we'll get you on a panel and we can dig deeper as well. But this was a great first episode with you, and we'll be cheering you on from the sidelines.
Thank you, and again, thank you for having me on your show.